This is where we belong.
Hello, and welcome to the Grinnell-Newburg School Foundation's We Belong Here podcast. This is episode number 6 with our special guest today, Julie Gosselink with the Ahrens Family Foundation and Chad Nath with the Ahrens Park Foundation. I'm your host, Dan Walker. Julie, Chad, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day coming up here. These past podcasts, we've been getting to know people from the Grinnell area. Some of them have been Grinnell alumni, as Julie, you're here today. Chad, you're much like me. You got brought into the community either from business or other aspects. I know it was business that brought you here with the hospital, but can you just give everyone a little bit of a background on yourself? Julie, we'll start with you since you are the local girl.
Sure. Thanks, Dan. So I was born and raised in Grinnell, graduated from high school in 1991, and have pretty much lived here my whole life other than going away to college. In a few years, I lived in Des Moines, and have 3 kids, raised 3 kids. Couldn't imagine a better community to raise them, and I guess you could say I'm a lifer.
Chad?
Yes, so I'm originally from Northwest Iowa, the Esterville area, where I actually graduated from Lincoln Central. Now it's Esterville Lincoln Central. So I taught school up in the Esterville area, and then, yes, the hospital brought me to Grinnell to run the summer program and then do emergency preparedness, safety, and security. I did that for until 2012, and then I did Director of Wellness, Fitness, and Integrated Medicine, and did the Postel's facility downtown, and then I transitioned away from the hospital in 19 and started the LINK program, and then did that for 2 to 3 years, and then took on the Ahrens Park Foundation's CEO and president position. So
that brings you into a good talking spot today. And from my point of view, as I sit here, I'm very fortunate that I've got to work with both of you in different aspects. Chad, when you come to town, when I was on the fire department as assistant fire chief, we worked closely together with the hospital in preparedness, and then you were a volunteer on the fire department with me too, so we got to work a lot together there. Julie, fundraising back and forth between the live stream and different things that the foundation and Ahrens Park has done over the past years. It's been a good relationship working there too. So I'm fortunate to have 2 people sitting here that I've done work with, and I could say before we even get started what we're going to talk about today, I appreciate what both of you have done for the city of Grinnell. And I think there's a lot of people that, they always would hear your names, especially Julie, they refer you back to your maiden name, but they just don't really realize the impact that you actually give back to the community. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. First of all, with the Ahrens Family Foundation and the park, since they're both kind of 2 different things but the same, they blossom out of the same. Julie, can you give us a little bit of history on where that all started?
Sure. So my grandfather was Claude Ahrens. Claude and Dolly were my grandparents, and Claude was the owner of Miracle Recreation Playground Equipment Company. So when he sold that later in his life, he decided he wanted to give back to Grinnell, which is where he was born and raised and lived his entire life. And so he created the Claude and Dolly Ahrens Foundation, which is the foundation that I work for. I am president and CEO, have been with that position for 25 years. Can't believe it's been that long. But he created the foundation in 1993, and the idea was to be able to support and give back to the community through various programs, projects, organizations with special interests in parks and recreation, education, and health and wellness. And then decided, let's build Ahrens Park, which was a whole nother endeavor. And the park is dedicated to the memory of my dad, who passed away when he was young, and a really close friend, Jim Pascal. So the Ahrens Pascal Memorial Park was built and opened in 1993, 1994. And with that became the second foundation that was created, the Ahrens Park Foundation. And so the reason for 2 different entities is simply for all of the physical assets that he donated, he wanted to set up separately, more for liability, but also just to have separation of two organizations with 2 different boards because a lot happens on any given day,
Right.
whether it's the park or the foundation. And so that's the way they've both been operating. And Chad came on board as our president CEO, like he said a few years ago. And we do a lot of things together. We have a lot of partnerships in the community together, but all in all, our mission is very closely aligned. And the Claude and Dolly Ahrens Foundation actually is the number one supporter financially of the Ahrens Park and all of its activities. Chad can talk a little bit more about that later, but we have very aligned interests, like I said, and close missions, and we're here to help the community grow and become better.
Now, I think one part that a lot of people, they may or may not know, is the holding of multiple, I don't want to say other foundations, but multiple funds that help support a lot of things in the Grinnell community, because there's, you guys, your name's always brought up when the Dollars for Scholars come around. But besides for the Dollars for Scholars, you help multiple other entities in the Grinnell area.
Yes, that's true. Dollars for Scholars is actually a program of Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation, which is another foundation, separate entity, and it is confusing because all three of these foundations, we share office space in one location out at Ahrens Park. But the Community Foundation is also a very vital, close partner, and the Ahrens Foundation provides back office support, meaning administrative, financial management, donor management. We offer staff support, basically expertise to their foundation and all of their programs and funds. And so that would be one example. And then the Ahrens Foundation has since taken on many community programs that we now have under our umbrella. And when I say under our umbrella, we are the financial fiscal sponsor, financial person or group entity to be responsible for these programs, but we work with advisory committees. So some of the programs that I'm referring to would be like Imagine Grinnell, Tiger Packs, Grinnell Food Coalition, She Counts, Giving Gardens, Grinnell Area Mental Health Consortium, Vosburg Music Fund. I'm going to try and name them all. Power Kids, Poweshiek Housing Assistance Fund, and I might have missed one. I'm sorry if I did. Yeah.
So that's going to lead up to my next thing, because I was hoping that you would elaborate on those things. So is this part of your grandpa's or grandfather's thought of the words, as I'm going to say it, leave it better than you found it? Is this, it just seems like it lines right into alignment of what a lot of the things that you just talked about.
Yeah, I think absolutely. When he passed away in the year 2000, and he entrusted myself and my brother and my sister as the third generation to try our best to leave it better than you found it, meaning continue to serve the needs of the community, and things and times, generations, needs change. And so whether he had the specific idea to provide back office support, I don't know. I think he was very entrepreneurial. He probably would have approved. I hope he would have approved. And also to take on these programs, things really changed during the pandemic. There was just such an increased need for different types of services, especially with food insecurity in our community, housing assistance, financial assistance, mental health services. And so we felt that we could best work together, collaborate, and we could help serve the programs even better with our staff that we had in place. And so that's kind of what we did. So I hope, I would like to think he'd be proud and would still be supportive of everything we're doing today.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely the one that I see the most is because my wife Lori works at Davis and works with Jennifer Cogley when the Tiger Packs and stuff come through, that she just says when you see these kids and the smile on their faces and, the extra nourishment that they may or may not have, but it's definitely getting home to them that they don't have it at home.
Right.
And it's just one of those positive things that it keeps leading up to where we're going here with this whole subject of why you two are here. And, we talk about giving back. And 3 or 4 weeks ago, you two both came to a school board meeting and made an announcement of a very gracious gift that was going to be given to the Grinnell School Board or Grinnell School System. I had Lisa Beams, or this past Tuesday. She's just very gracious of it. And, I asked her, I said, so was it a surprise for you? She goes, it was a surprise to all of us, but she said, we had a little insight before it happened because we had to do some planning. But, let's talk about the gift. Where did your guys' thought process come from this to get where we're at to say that we're accepting the gift of Ahrens Park or a partial part of it?
Yeah, so obviously we know the history of the Grinnell schools and incidences where we thought a bond would pass or a pebble, and it just seems like we always get stuck in the mud. So Ahrens Park is an ideal space for, obviously, education and recreation and environmental care and just a betterment. So we figured, and obviously Julie will support this as well, that in order to advance Grinnell into the future and be positioned in a good space to provide multiple things, not just education, this was something that would help jolt us forward. So this was obviously with the Ahrens family supporting this and wanting this to occur. It helps us hopefully to lunge and bring that to fruition, and hopefully we can get that pebble passed.
And I think it's also important to add that we didn't want to make this announcement. We didn't want to do it too soon because we wanted the school board to do their due diligence as far as deciding if Davis School would still be open or were they going to have to make that hard decision to close it. When they made that decision, then we approached a few small numbers of Lisa and some of the other school board members just to let them know what we were thinking. But it had to happen really quick as far as, like she said, there had to be some very quick planning involved on their part and doing their continued due diligence and looking at the current property of middle school being a possible option to build, and then comparing the prices of what it would cost as far as the infrastructure, getting everything up to code with street traffic and water, sewage, electrical, all those things. And that was all taken into consideration. And then knowing that the Pebble vote has to happen on March 4th because that's a state mandated time period. It's not like that's just a date that the school district came up with. So it was very rushed in some ways, but yet we tried to make that announcement as soon as we could and to give people some time to kind of react to it.
Right. And to give this will be like a follow-up to Lisa Beams that will air the week before with this actual podcast. But in summary of what Lisa told me, she said that, we were approached and she said we had to sit there and think about it as a group because in their mind, they were not going to buy any ground. So she said we had one option. It was the middle school and how we could make everything work at the middle school. And she said at that particular location, she said we would be spending money possibly to move buildings to make a building. And she said we were just kind of scratching our heads saying, okay, but that's our only option because we have to move forward and make something work. And she said after you're approached by you guys, and she said we sit there and first we did is we looked at the plot. And then she said from the plot, she said with help from the city, she goes, I'm not going to say we did this all alone. She said it was a collaboration of the city offered an engineer that could come and help look at it. And she said the zoning people looked at it. And then she said the last people we brought in was the school engineers that went to both locations and basically turned around with a smile and said, this location of Ahrens Park would be the choice one just because of everything, how it lays, the land's there. She said, the guy turned and told her, she said, we'd be paying to move dirt at the middle school to try to make everything where it needed to be. So she said, everything just was perfect as it set, and she said, I know that, she's going to talk about in our podcast some of the questions that were brought up about Ahrens Park of what about this and what about that. And there are some working solutions that I think is great that we could talk about in a few minutes. But ultimately, she just said that ideally, she said, a gift was given. And she said, the gift is only going to be received if the city voters turn around and say, we will accept it. Because she said the school would say, yes, we'll accept it in a heartbeat. But she said it has to be the city voters by voting yes on March 4th to accept the Pebble. And, she has a great outline, and I encourage everyone to go back and listen. Obviously, this will be the day before the Pebble vote. But there's a lot of things that Lisa talks about that are just, it's 45 minutes of information. If you haven't taken the time to go sit and listen, Lisa pretty much covers everything in that 45 minutes. She does a great job. Okay, so a big gift, Julie, and you just said 25 years of seeing the land as it sits and all the activities that go on there. There had to be some tough thoughts within the Ahrens Park and the foundation of what do you guys, how do you move, if the vote goes through, how do you move forward, and what are you going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very, very hard decision, one that we did not take lightly. And, we, like Chad said, we looked at the bigger picture, not just for the school district, but for the community as a whole. And knowing that this is kind of the start of the building blocks that are necessary to have a community grow, because everything else can fall into place. Knowing also that we would have time to try to help solve the issues of being able to replace some of the services or programs that could be affected by this. And so, yeah, it's a difficult decision, but at the end of the day, we knew that this could be something that could launch our community forward with a new school building at a location that makes sense for all of the different options that we have here. And we know it's not a perfect solution. It never can be a perfect solution, but we're confident that with the conversations that we've had, even before this was announced, there were conversations between the City of Grinnell, Parks and Recreation Department, the Grinnell Community Early Learning Center that's housed at the Ahrens Family Center, those two organizations especially that will be affected. We are confident that we can help them, work with them and other community leaders, our larger employers, to come up with solutions, and with the school district to come up with solutions to help replace those services and, even at making them even better and stronger in the end.
And with those partners, we wanted to make sure that they heard it from us first. And so we had those meetings. And, there's no doubt in my mind that the leadership that's in this community, we can resolve any of those shortfalls of what's going to happen with this and what's going to happen with that. We have very creative people in this community, and I don't hesitate at one moment that we can't figure that out. So, and, the other thing that's really important is, I've unfortunately have been in all the buildings with, doing either childcare or after school care or summer programming. And so I've seen all the buildings or coaching at the middle school and at the high school. And then that also leads you to other communities. And so it kind of makes you go and you go to like a Norwalk and you're like, holy cow, this facility is absolutely amazing. And just think of the opportunities that those children have with this. And, as a person that's done some of the summer programming and after school programming, I also was in those facilities when large employers are bringing in a physician to check the community out. And you can see the look on their face when they'd walk into the school building and be like, oh no, like I thought this would be
right.
So you can see the impact of that. And I really think that this will draw people into our community and help us with our frontline staff and then also the upper management as well. So I can see it, the whole spectrum can benefit from this possibility of a new school.
Well, I think one step that, a lot of people take for granted, and you two both have had kids that are past the 3rd and 4th grade stage, but most of the parents may say this, that our third grader come home and made the comment, well, such and such goes to school in Grinnell. I never knew they went to school here, but they were either at Fairview or they were at Bailey Park. And, I experienced the exact same thing with our two boys, especially when we talk about activities that were at Ahrens Park, that if they're in kindergarten, 1st grade, or 2nd grade, they'll say, well, there's a boy or girl, I don't know who it is because I don't know who they are, and it's because they're at one school or the other. That now we have the opportunity that, I brought this kind of description up to somebody that made the points like, well, we could be losing the soccer fields. I said, well, just think of it this way. Instead of having your kids just meeting someone for the first time during soccer, now we could have a school there that they're going to go to school from K through possibly 5th grade if funding would have to come out correctly. And we're not going to have to worry about them not knowing each other. Mm-hmm. So, we take our teachers and they'll be able to collaborate since they're from K to 5 instead of starting at 3rd graders and having our in-service day on Mondays where kindergarten through 2nd grader teachers have to move somewhere to go somewhere to actually have a meeting. Now we could start to eliminate all that, have it all in one source. And then when they leave school, they're friends all the way from when they start to the end. I said, wouldn't that be a great deal? And they kind of look at me like, you're crazy. But it is important for our kids because I think a lot of times we don't think about the kids of when they start something. We're already talking about when we're consolidating to move around to fix the problem for 2.5 years is taking a 4th grade and put it with a 5th grade that, I didn't realize how 5th graders didn't really think they fit in that well at the middle school, that this could be a good thing by putting 4th graders with them to kind of have a collaboration and make them feel at home. So it's a little bit easier to get acclimated into the middle school. So I think a lot of those things that people just start listening, that there's a lot of good coming out of it that we just don't know because we're adults on the outside.
Sure. Yeah. And we understand that the unknowns of thinking soccer would go away, some of the programs that happen at the Grinnell Athletic Rec Center, GARC, for those recreational programs, but we have other spaces in the park. We never said just because those are going to go away, we can't figure out new spaces. The school district has already said they have space that they could build soccer fields. The city has said we could probably build soccer fields. I mean, this is every city in the U.S. that's their job. That's their responsibility to provide those. But we have provided them for 30 years. And I think that's where people forget we didn't have to do that. And I'm not trying to say that, everybody should just be grateful, but this is a unique town. This is a unique situation, and we're a unique foundation. So that's not even the typical model. So change is hard, and there's so many other opportunities to have, like I said, different ways of providing these programs and services, and it doesn't have to be at Ahrens Park, or it could be at the South End. We're looking into every possible option.
And we put 2 or 3 flag football fields in the baseball fields anyway in the fall time, so that could be an opportunity that it's all space that's there. We just don't look ahead and say we could use it. So I think there is a lot of things in it. It's a two-part gift. A gift was given, 25 or back in 1993 by Ahrens Park being given. And then the amenities that grew out of that, I think, like you just said, people take advantage or they don't recognize what that gift was.
Yeah, and I think it's really important so we do not understand, coming from Estherville, our parks and rec, there wasn't a privately owned public park which you have in Grinnell, which is very, very unique. And it was set up to serve the community. So Ahrens Park always has a deficit in its funding, and we are the biggest recipient from the Claude W. Ahrens Foundation to cover because we subsidize our leases and the programs that are there to make it affordable for the children, the youth that are participating in it. So it's a very unique, and even still today I hear people, hey, Ahrens Park, that's the best park in Grinnell, and the city owns it. And you're so still right. People confuse that's the situation there, but it's a very unique situation in the state and nationally as well.
Yeah. And it's known everywhere. I mean, I do a lot of work in Eastern Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area, and when I say that I'm from Grinnell, that's their first reference is Ahrens Park, and it's all about softball, baseball. It's where we spend Saturdays there. The big tournaments and the one all weekend tournament. They always talk about
small town.
Yeah, it's great because they have room on the south side. They could go and they pull in and set their camper up. And I don't say, well, you're actually in someone else's parking lot when you do that, but it's great. We have that area to come, and they They say, we wish we had something, so going back to what Chad said. From the standpoint of me being a neighbor, we're very grateful for your gift. And, and I know it's just not your gift, but it's bigger than that. It's what you and the foundations have given back. All I could say for the people that are listening, that March 4th, tomorrow, as this thing's going to release on Monday the 3rd, is a very important day, and for people to go out and accept the gift and say, we could put a new school there. And I think if they go back and listen to Lisa Beams, that the gift is an unrecognized value, because if we look at what the land value is actually worth, and when you talk about 40 acres, that it's going to have a school, a $32 million school, and what we're actually voting for is only going to be 14% that pays for that. There's funds that set up in place by the school board that help offset all that other stuff, that we're just asking for a small increase of property taxes. And somebody else told me it's a cup of coffee every week.
Yeah. If
you set that aside, or it's one bad habit that you set aside once a week that will pay for that increase on your property taxes. And I've had a few people that ask questions that were senior citizens that were complaining, and they don't even take advantage of the senior citizen savings tax that they could have. So they could actually save more money and vote yes and still have it pass through. Anything else you two want to add?
I feel that this is something that we really need to, and I always kind of like it to, if you immediately go to, oh, that's going to affect me, you're not looking at it the right way. This is about what we're looking to build for our future, and that's our children. And so this is an important step to help and be selfless, to allow us to build something that this community desperately needs. So I would say that's probably my last point.
And to get out and vote, and to be educated, and to just go out and vote. That's what we need everyone to do. Ahrens Park will still continue to be Ahrens Park. It's not going to go away. It will still have the legacy, and things evolve and change over time. And this is something very vital and important that we made a decision on. That, again, it's not a perfect one, but we feel like this is the best decision that we can make given the moment. We have that opportunity to be able to make a change. And if it was not us stepping up and doing something, we would risk having this vote go a different way, or either way, who knows. But we feel very strongly that this is a catalyst for so much more growth, economic development, new business to come to town, which will spur all kinds of ongoing benefits for the community, for every single person. So again, like Chad said, we got to look at the big picture and think about the growth of our community. And if this doesn't happen, where do we go? Where do we go from here? Because I have no idea.
Right.
I'm scared to know what the answer would be if this doesn't happen.
Well, for everyone that's listening that heard Chad say that a doctor or anyone that comes and walks through the school to make their choice to come here, that happens all the time. Good friends with Kevin Colby, and the first place they go is to a realtor, and then from a realtor they start asking questions and they take a tour around town, and the schools are the number one thing that's on their list. Because if we're going to try to bring younger business people or younger leaders into this town, they're going to have kids and they want to know where they're going to raise their kids. So I think that was a great point you made, Chad, that people need to hear that. I mean, it's just not for us. It's if we're going to grow this community, which to stay young and vibrant, you have to bring people in from the outside. So Chad, Julie, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule this afternoon. And again, I want to thank you on part of the foundation and the park for the gift that you've given us. And I just encourage everybody, if you have any questions, ask the questions before you go vote, but we want you to get out and vote yes. And I can say vote yes because I can. So for Chad and Julie, thank you. And myself, I'm your host, Dan Walker. Thank you for joining us for the We Belong Here podcast. And I think today was a real good example of we do belong here. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.